All right, for Niners faithful, we are back and we have some major updates to talk about. The San Francisco 49ers just got proof that what they built this year was not a fluke. I'm going to break this down from a few different angles because there's a lot going on, and honestly, it's exciting to see the team continuing to attract talent even after a season full of injuries and chaos. The way the offseason is shaping up is giving off a strong message. The Niners are still a destination, and people want to be a part of this culture. First, let's talk about the guys who are signing on for the offseason. You've got a list of players like Isaac Alarcon, Evan Anderson, Junior Bergen, Derek Canteen, Jalen Graham, Adrian Martinez, Drake Nent, and Sebastian Valdez. Now, I know most of those names don't scream household, but that's kind of the point. These are guys who are choosing to hitch their wagon to the 49ers because they see the potential here. They see a team that's still moving forward, and they want to be part of that journey. Some of these players have bounced around, some are undrafted, and some have just been on the edge of making it. But they're all buying in, they're all putting in the work, and the 49ers are clearly getting value out of their development system. And when you look at someone like Sebastian Valdez, that's one of the most telling signings, a guy who was close to getting on the field so many times, who earned practice squad elevations because of his effort on the scout team, but still didn't quite get his shot. That tells you something about the culture here. The organization doesn't just reward talent, they reward grind. They reward the guys who show up, do the work, and stay ready. Valdez didn't get the highlight reel, but he got respect. And that matters. Now, I want to admit something right away. I was wrong about Robert Saleh staying with the 49ers. I truly thought he was going to be here next year, and to be fair, I was not alone in that. Even the bookmakers had it leaning that way. But Robert Saleh signed a 5-year deal with the Tennessee Titans, and that's just the reality. It stings, especially when you look at what he built. The defensive identity he started to form was something special, and it's disappointing to see him go, but at the same time, you can't deny the success the team had under him, even with the injuries and the turnover on defense. So now the big question becomes, who is the next defensive coordinator? This is going to be the 5th year in a row where the 49ers have a different defensive coordinator. That's wild. That's not how you build long-term continuity. And it's not like the NFL is a place where stability comes easy, but still, you would think that by now, the 49ers would have settled into something more consistent. People are calling for a situation similar to what the Chiefs have with Spags, where you just have someone solid, dependable, and stable. Someone who stays in place and builds a long-term plan, and honestly, that would be ideal. The problem is that Kyle Shanahan is still relatively young as a head coach, and his coaching staff is still young too, so this kind of turnover is almost expected. It's the nature of the business, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating. From the moment Saleh was hired, I kept hoping the organization could find a way to keep him for at least 2 years. I wanted him to have time to truly build something, to have a chance to put his stamp on the defense, and to see that project through. Unfortunately, that didn't happen now. We're going to have to watch what happens with the free agency class and the unrestricted free agents. There are a lot of key names that are going to be available, and the question is how many of those guys the 49ers can or will bring back. For me, the big one is Sam Okwongo. I can absolutely see a scenario where Robert Saleh, now in Tennessee, goes after someone like him. That's the kind of player who fits the system, fits the mentality, and could be a key piece in what Saleh wants to build. So it will be very interesting to see who Saleh targets from the 49ers, and how many of those players decide to follow him. And for the 49ers, the decision-making process at defensive coordinator will be critical. I did a poll today asking fans who they think should be the next DC, and I threw out a few names that have been floating around. Brian Flores is one of them. That's an interesting one because it would be a lateral move in some ways. Flores is no longer under contract with the Vikings, so he's available, and that's always a factor. He's been linked to other jobs, like Dallas, so it's unclear whether he would want to leave Minnesota, where they have an interesting quarterback situation and a roster that is still young and promising. But the opportunity to come to San Francisco could be very appealing, especially for a coach looking to take the next step. Another name that came up is KJ Wright, who would be a well-deserved promotion. He's been a respected leader and a strong voice in the building. Then there's Gus Bradley, who feels like the obvious candidate. He's been in the organization. He's been involved in the defensive success, and he feels like the next man up. I think most fans would feel comfortable with him because he's proven and steady, and let's be honest, he's definitely more qualified than some of the previous defensive coordinators in recent years. The comparison to Nick Sorensen is valid. Bradley is a seasoned coach with a clear track record, and you can't overlook that. But then there's the argument for an external hire. Some people like the idea of bringing in fresh ideas, a new voice, a new philosophy. It's exciting to think about, but when you replace someone like Saleh, who was building something significant, it might make more sense to stay internal. The defense is already moving in a direction. The scheme, the identity, the culture, those things can continue if you keep it in-house. It's easier to keep a train moving than to switch tracks completely. I also want to mention some other names that have been floated. Jim Schwartz is one of them, and that's an interesting shout. He's experienced and could bring stability. There's also Daniel Bullocks, the defensive back coach, who interviewed for the defensive coordinator position last season. He's been with the organization since Shanahan arrived, and he's worked his way up to a key role. That could be an internal promotion that makes a lot of sense, especially if the goal is continuity. And of course, there's always the theoretical outside hire like Steve Wilks. I like the concept of an outside hire in theory because it shakes things up and brings in a new energy. But when you look at what Saleh was building, you have to ask yourself if you want to disrupt that momentum or keep it going. For me, the safer play is internal because the team already has a direction. It's just a matter of keeping it moving forward. Now, let's talk about what all of this means. For me, this situation proves how successful the Niners were this season. The defense lost so many pillars, and yet the team still found a way to win games. They still found a way to stop opponents in critical moments, especially in the red zone, and that's a huge part of what made this year special. There were moments when the defense looked shaky, sure, but there were also moments where they showed real resilience and toughness. I'm also paying attention to the fact that the team is now getting poached. When other teams start trying to take your coaches and players, that's a sign that you're doing something right. It means you've built something valuable. It means the culture is strong enough that other organizations want to copy it or take pieces of it. That's not something that happens by accident. Now let's shift to the rookie review because this is another major piece of evidence that the 49ers season was a real success. When you look at how many players stepped up and contributed as rookies, it becomes clear that the team did not just survive the injuries. They actually developed young talent under pressure. That is not easy to do, especially in a season where the expectations are high and the margin for error is small. But this year, the rookies got real snaps, real opportunities, and they delivered in a way that gives you hope for the future. You have players like Ulysses St. Brown, Alfred Collins, Marcel Harris, and even Connor McGovern, who had a stretch where he was solid despite some growing pains. Melvin Williams, when healthy, showed flashes of being a legit contributor. C.J. West was a name that really stood out for me because he showed not only talent, but also confidence and a mindset that fits this team. There were a lot of snaps to go around, and it wasn't just because the team wanted to give rookies playing time. It was because injuries forced them into the situation, and the rookies rose to the challenge. Now, I'm not going to pretend this was a perfect rookie season. It wasn't a huge class where everything clicked immediately. But in a draft year where you can walk away with 3 or 4 solid players who stick on the roster and contribute, that is a win. If you get to or 3 who are close to starting, or who you can see being starters soon, that's even better. The reality is that you can't expect every draft to be perfect. The NFL is a long game, and sometimes the development takes time. But the 49ers are in a position where their rookie class is not only contributing now, but also showing signs of becoming foundational pieces. If we look at specific players, you can't ignore the fact that Ulysses St. Brown is a starter. That alone is a huge win. He was a key part of the offensive line this year, and that's not something you can say lightly. Offensive line play is one of the hardest things to develop, and for a rookie to step in and hold up at that level is impressive. Alfred Collins is still young and still improving, but he has the potential to be a long-term starter. Marcel Harris is in the conversation too, and I think he has the chance to be a real contributor. Moving forward, Connor McGovern isn't a starter yet, but he showed enough to make you believe he could be. And the same goes for other players who had moments like Jordan Watkins, Jordan James, and Nick Martin. I'm not ready to write those guys off yet. This is a team that has shown it knows how to develop linebackers and other young players. If you look at how D. Winters has improved each year, that's the blueprint. The key is patience and consistent coaching, and the 49ers have shown they can do that. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If you look at the yearly rookie snap count percentage over the last 5 years, you'll notice the 49ers are toward the bottom. That's not surprising when you consider the roster is stacked with established players who are hard to displace. Teams like the Bills or the Eagles also sit low because their starters are solid, and the opportunities for rookies are limited. But when you're at the bottom and you're not a good team, that's a problem. The difference is that the 49ers have been winning, and that changes the context. What I find most fascinating about the rookie snap chart is the trajectory from 2020 through 2022. The 49ers were around 8%. That's not terrible, but in 2023, that number dropped to just over 3%. That was a rough draft year. Looking back, the picks were mixed. Some were good, some were misses, and some were in between. But when you have a year like that, it stands out. You start asking questions about how to improve the draft strategy and how to get more immediate value from the picks. When you look at the 2023 draft class, there were some good moments. T.Y. McGill was a decent pick, and he became a starter for a good portion of the season. Jared Brown, however, didn't quite deliver the way you hoped, and you can't ignore that. Jake Moody was a clear mistake, and Cameron Latu was also a miss, but there were also positive outcomes like D. Winters and Robert Beal Jr., who were good value picks. And then you have the 7th rounders, who did what you expect from 7th round picks. They provided depth and gave you options. That's part of the game. Moving into the 2024 class, the outlook is a bit more mixed. Ricky Pearsall has the talent, no doubt. But there's a question mark about long-term durability and consistency. He dealt with a PCL injury that affected his availability. And until you see a full season from him healthy, it's hard to fully trust that he can be relied on. Renardo Green has been solid, and I'm comfortable saying he's a good pick. Dominic Puny has been one of the best value picks in the draft, especially for a 3rd rounder. He's been a genuine starter, and that kind of immediate impact is rare. Malik Mustafa has also shown promise and looks like a player who will continue improving. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to 49ers Zone and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the San Francisco 49ers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Tension is reportedly boiling over inside the San Francisco 49ers organization, and league insiders are starting to whisper about a scenario that once seemed unthinkable. According to sources close to the franchise, owner Jed York was furious in the aftermath of the team's latest showing and immediately called for an emergency meeting with top executives. The tone, described as intense and emotional, has fueled growing speculation that head coach Kyle Shanahan may finally be feeling real pressure on his job. For years, Shanahan has been viewed as one of the league's brightest defensive minds, protected by past success, locker room respect, and York's public loyalty. But patience, even in stable organizations, is not unlimited behind closed doors. Frustration is said to be mounting over recurring issues that refuse to disappear. Inconsistent execution, questionable in-game decisions, and the feeling that a roster built to contend is underachieving at critical moments. The emergency meeting reportedly included senior football operations staff and focused less on individual plays and more on the overall direction of the team. Sources suggest York wants clear answers and immediate solutions, not long-term explanations. The message was allegedly blunt: expectations are championship level, and anything less is becoming skeptical. While no formal decision has been made, the mere fact that such a meeting took place has sent shockwaves through the building. Around the league, rival executives are quietly monitoring the situation, aware that a potential shakeup in San Francisco could trigger a domino effect in the coaching market. Shanahan, for his part, is said to remain outwardly calm, but those close to him admit he understands the stakes have changed. For now, everything remains in the realm of rumor and speculation. Yet the sense is clear: the security that once surrounded the 49ers head coach may no longer be ironclad. If performances fail to improve and doubts continue to grow, Jed York's fury could mark the beginning of a dramatic turning point for one of the NFL's most closely watched franchises. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the San Francisco 49ers, make sure to subscribe to 49ers Zone and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.